I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call the July 16, 2020 meeting to order. To roll call. I show
Hey buddy, how you doing?
everyone is here except Dan, and he was excused. Attorney Sorensen is also present. Number 3, agenda changes. Are there any? If not, we'll move to 4, consent agenda. A, June 18th, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. B, June 18th, 2020 closed session minutes. C, licenses and permits as presented. And D, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. Are there any questions? If not, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. 5, public hearing, Warner Street preliminary assessments. Is there anyone here to speak? No. So we will continue to close the public hearing. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. There are none. We'll go to 7, committee reports, Public Safety Committee from June 24th. Jim?
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to find it here in this pile. So, yeah, we had the public safety meeting, and we hashed out a little bit, made some modifications to the previously proposed ordinance for firearms, and we should have the new, I think it went through Bob, and I was trying to find the final copy of it, and I can't find it. What's that?
We can
Yeah, we'll
discuss
discuss that
it
in the board meeting. But yeah, the proposed changes should be in the packet.
Hey, Jim, before you leave tonight, I want to talk to you about who to contact regarding, somebody wants to contact the fire department about a claim or something. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay.
We will then go to 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, December 31st, 2019 financial statements and audit process review. Greg Patel from Kerber Rose is here. You have the floor.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. As she said, my name is Greg Patel. I joined Kerber Rose as a partner this past December after spending 15 plus years in the industry. So what I thought I would do is kind of walk you through the different phases of the audit cycle so you can kind of understand how we arrive at the audit opinion, and then we'll go through the financials. And along the way, as we go, if you have any questions, feel free to either stop me or we can go through your questions at the end too. So there's 3 phases to the audit: interim field work, final field work, and then kind of the wrap up in the production of the draft financial statements. The interim procedures really consist of gathering information so we can assess the risk and plan the final audit procedures accordingly to whatever is new. And it also includes inquiries of board member and village management as to any improper activity or any fraud. None of that was noted during our inquiries. And then we really review your accounting processes and your internal controls and try to provide any insight that we have to make those more effective and efficient. So the results of those procedures did not really reveal anything substantial that would arrive in the management letter this year. And then we move on to the final which is where we take your trial balance, and we perform substantive test of procedures and analytical procedures to arrive at a comfort level that allows us to opine on the financial statements that we have. So if you open the booklet to page 1, that's where our audit opinion is. Under the bold headline, management's responsibility for the financial statements, it essentially says, yes, we prepared the financial statements, but at the end, we provided you with a draft, and you reviewed them, made any changes that were necessary to them, and then signed the management rep letter accepting responsibility for the content of the financial statements. Then it explains our responsibility, which is really to opine on the financial statements and obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free of material misstatement. We have done that with a clean, unmodified audit opinion, with the exception of your component unit, the fire department, which doesn't record all of its capital assets and doesn't record the accumulated depreciation. So that opinion unit has an adverse opinion based on the fact that that's not following generally accepted accounting principles. That's not new to your financial statements this year. It's been carried forward since I believe you added the component unit onto the financial statements. Moving to pages 5 and 6, or 4 and 5, pardon me, is your statement of net position. What this really presents is you have governmental funds, and then you have business funds, which are your wastewater and your water, and they provide a column for each of those on the full accrual basis, which is a basis of accounting that you don't really budget the general fund side of things on. So what that really includes is adding your long-term assets and your long-term liabilities to what your governmental fund statements show. So you've got, if you look down under total assets, 2 lines up, you've got your capital assets, and then under total liabilities, then you start to add your long-term liabilities, the debt that either finance those capital assets, or then your net pension liability, and then your OPEB liability, which arises from your participation in the WRS's life insurance program and then their pension program. So that the pension has been shifting back and forth every couple of years, if not every year, between a net pension asset and a net pension liability based on the WRS's, essentially the market activity and its investments. It's very close to fully funded. I believe it's about 96% in this past year, fully funded. The life insurance, not quite that good. That funding level is in the 40%. But it did increase from 44 to 48% fully funded. Moving on to the statement of activities. On pages 6 and 7. Again, this statement is really on the full accrual basis of accounting. It starts off on the very left-hand column with the expenses throughout the various functions of the village activity, and then it assigns any charges for services, operating grants and contributions, or capital grants and contributions that are really specific to that program, and then you come out with a net program cost under the net expenses, revenues, and changes in net position, that first column on page 7 for your governmental activities. And then, so the total cost of your programs was on the governmental side was 2.4 million. And then you'll see there's general revenues down below that fund the rest of those programs. Overall, the full accrual change in net position, 402,000 on the governmental side. And utilities made $290,000. Any questions so far?
I noticed on last year's audit report, we do have something listed under component union for fire district. So did that change these numbers significantly, not having that? I guess so we typically don't provide those numbers, but we did last year for some reason.
Yeah, we do have the fire district numbers, but they're just not completely on a GAAP basis.
Okay,
Which is what that's saying. So
okay,
there's some capital assets that they have that they didn't record that are not reflected in here,
okay,
and they do not depreciate the assets that they did record.
okay. So the component union fire district numbers from last year was not, what you're saying, they're not capital,
Yeah, they're just not in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles.
okay,
And that's really where that adverse opinion arises from.
okay, thank you.
Next, we'll touch on your governmental funds. Pages 8 and 9 reflect the balance sheet. And the balance sheet is really a point in time at the end of the year, December 31st. Here's the assets that you have, here are the liabilities, and then the resulting fund balance position as a result of that. So really on this statement, the fund balance, especially for the general fund, is really what you want to focus on. And really the unassigned fund balance is really where you want to focus that attention. So the first column is the general fund. And you'll see the general fund has fund balance in two different categories, non-spendable and then unassigned fund balance. Your unassigned fund balance of $770,000 is approximately 34% of your general fund expenditures. From a bond rating perspective, anything over 30% is considered very strong and puts you, there's various components aside from this in a bond rating call, but this component would put you in a AAA status. So in addition to just bond rating, having a strong fund balance allows you to weather any contingencies, which we found this year we definitely are having. I'm sure that your charges for services are probably going to take a dip as a result of COVID. In addition, the state of Wisconsin pays your shared revenues in November, so you operate for almost 11 months of the year with a big portion of your revenues that haven't been collected yet. In addition, the property tax levy is settled usually in the 8th month of the year. This year, it potentially would be the ninth month. So a strong fund balance really allows you to weather the cash shortages and fund your expenses while you wait on those other significant revenues for the year.
Maybe this is more of a Nathan or Jane question. So under fund balance, under unassigned, last year we were at a positive 434,000. This year we're at negative 366,000. Did we do something significant to our unassigned fund balance?
Well,
That's not the general.
No?
Well, that's
The
total,
government.
so like
That's
the
with the
kids,
TID in there.
That's with everything.
so
Okay,
the
so,
TID, that's with the Brookwood Drive purchase, because the TIDs don't actually have money, it's all part of the villages.
and those were out of fund balance that we did, right?
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the TID activity is really driving that change in the
Okay.
unassigned fund balance. The next column is the debt service fund, which takes care and pays the debt service for the year. And then you have your capital improvements fund. And then the 3 TIDs that were major. So every fund presented on here goes through a threshold and then is determined to be a major fund. You have some other funds that we'll look at in a minute, and they didn't meet that threshold, so then they become aggregated into the other governmental funds, and then they're presented in a supplemental schedule in the back of the statements. Okay? So TID 2 during the year was closed. TID 3 had the significant Grandview Drive Road project, which was about $800,000, and it's generating a tax levy of about $128,000. So then you had an unassigned negative fund deficit of $736,000 at the end of the year. You also have about $800,000 in outstanding debt to yet pay off. This TID has to terminate in 2033 as of right now. So the net unreimbursed cost for TID 3 is about 1.5 million. If you didn't have any increase in the tax levy of 130,000, you would come out, pretty close to even right now. So I don't know if that road project is going to generate any additional tax revenue or not.
Well, there's still the 400,000 that the village has to pay.
That's correct. Yeah, you'll have, the general fund will kick over about 400,000 of that project in the 2020 statements also, so. TID 4, you had a land purchase, a road project, and then a little developer incentive payment there. So you also had a deficit at the end of the year, 388,000. That one generated 7,000 of tax increment during the 2019 statements. In 2020, that'll be about 27,000. So you started to see a little bit of return on investment there with the increase in the tax equalization amounts. Really, it's not unusual to see a TID go in deficit position early on in its life. Really, the goal of the TID is to invest in something so that you either attract some development and then you increase your tax base. So typically you're going to fund that on the front side with either debt service, or if the general fund has enough fund balance, you can fund some of that there. So TID 3 is a hybrid of, you did take out some debt in 2013 to fund that project. And then this year's project really has been funded by the general fund. So up here, you'll see the due to other funds about halfway down the page under the liabilities. And TID 3 has a due to the general fund of $630,000 at the end of the year. TID 4, that deficit really falls under advance from other funds, because at 400,000 and only generating 28,000 right now, that's more of a long-term payback. And so when you look at the general fund non-spendable fund balance, that 373,000 is in that number right there. So there's two ways to go about that, which is to allow that deficit to continue as non-spendable general fund balance, or you could issue debt to fund that deficit, and then that 373,000 would fall back down from non-spendable to unassigned fund balance in the general fund side of things. We'll move to the statement of changes in revenues and expenses on page 11 and 12. Again, the first column is your general fund. Overall increase of 81,000, and minus the 400,000 then in the future of a future commitment there. So as we go through, debt service still had 1.6 million at the end of the year after paying the debt service obligations for the year. Capital improvements, pretty close to a break-even fund balance. And then we kind of discussed the activity that drove the TID funds there. Any questions on that? So the other governmental funds that don't qualify as major then are presented on page 52. Pardon me. Predominantly, aside from your general fund, your debt service fund, you have either capital projects funds or special revenue funds. And for it to be a special revenue fund, there would be an underlying revenue that is feeding that fund's activity. And so pretty self-explanatory when you look at the titles of the special revenue funds there. The subdivision park fees, they're being funded by assessments that in turn are funding park development activity. And then you've got your housing and neighborhood conservation and your Wisconsin Development Fund grant. And the first one is the new TID 5, which didn't have too much activity at the end of the year. If no questions on the governmental funds, we'll move into the utilities then. Those start on page 14. Your water and wastewater utility are presented as one opinion unit on this statement of net position. And then it lists out your different assets, your liabilities, and then your net position as of the end of the year. You'll see, I think you're in a very strong position from a cash perspective. You have $1 million of unrestricted cash, and then you have $1 million of restricted cash in the utilities. There's a couple different measures of performance in the utilities that are kind of important to look at in terms of how are they really performing. That's really cash flow, and then your net income as a percent of your total capital plant in the utilities. So first we'll go through your cash flows, which are on page 16.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
And this really should be directed, I think, to Jane. Customer accounts receivable, that's a significant number. Is that due to the billing cycle?
$355K.
354,000.
That's a good question.
Yeah, typically the billing cycle dictates what your accounts receivable are at the end of the year.
Yeah, so the billing cycle is always the same, 4 quarters, usually the same date.
Yep.
When would the billing cycle be taken or bill sent out? December?
We bill quarterly, but we
Right.
bill every month because we
You have to
have
accrue,
3
you have to accrue, right?
routes. We don't receive all of 2020's or 19's funds until the
21st of
December
January.
bill goes out in March.
Yeah.
So we might
Yeah.
not, might not pay off or see 19's total value until,
And last year at that same time period was $340,280.
Yeah, so
So-
it has to be due to the billing cycle.
Yeah, it's almost the same
Okay.
as last year.
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, on pages 16 then and 17 are your cash flow statement for the utilities. You know, net cash flows from operating activities, 936,000. That's really the number that you want to look at when you start to look at, you know, are our rates sufficient to recover our operating costs? And then you want to be generating enough then to cover your debt service and then any capital costs. So, you know, as you go through the different components here, your most significant after the operating activities is the cash flow from capital and related financing activities. That's where the acquisition of your capital assets this year, $230,000, and then your principal and interest, along with the payment on the advance to other funds. So, you know, the net of those activities was $1 million. Net change in cash and investments, 10,000. So practically break even there. You're covering all of the other financing along with your operating expenses. So. And then the net income as a percent of your overall capital infrastructure in those is shown on page 5 of the management letter. And we've got 2018 there next to both the water and wastewater just for comparison purposes. So you can see down about 2/3 of the way down, operating income, water was about 12,000 better than 2018, and wastewater was about 60,000 less. So rates that as a percent of your rate base, which is your capital infrastructure, 5.43% in the water and 2.67% in the wastewater. Right now, the Wisconsin Public Service Commission has a benchmark of 4.9%. If you were going in for a rate increase, that's kind of the rate of return that they work with to figure out, you know, the increase in your rates. So that the fact that you're performing above that right now is really strong performance from the water utilities perspective. So, and in the wastewater, I would suggest that anything over 2.5% is very strong as well.
So you could say they're doing a good job?
I would.
Don't hurt yourself. Good job, Carl. I'll say it. Good job.
Okay, pages 18 and 19. GASB statement 84 related to fiduciary activities, and the village had to adopt that statement this year. What that really resulted in, it was a very, really insignificant change. You had page 18 last year, which was a balance sheet or statement of net position. And these funds were called agency funds last year. Now they went to custodial funds. What did change though was page 19. Your tax collection fund now is required to have an income statement. And what that $2.577 million amount is, you'll see that the revenue side and the expense side equal out to zero, or net to zero. That's really the tax collections the village took in from December, January, and February, and then turned around and paid out to the other taxing jurisdictions. So certainly with that, I would take any questions that you have for me.
For the fire department, that has come up before, is that something that's really hurting us? To not have them?
It doesn't hurt you from a bond rating standpoint. It doesn't, if you haven't had any public feedback on the adverse opinion, then it's not really affecting you there. I mean, just from a financial performance perspective, it's not necessarily affecting you, but it's just a disclosure that we have to make in the audit opinion that, hey, you're not quite following what's GAAP. Okay, so you know, you have some towns out there that are on the modified cash basis of accounting, and they don't record any capital infrastructure in their government-wide statement of net position, and you have a very similar opinion in there. So it's really how you use the financials, and I don't really think that the presentation of the fire department without all of its capital assets is overly significant. But that's really a management use decision on whether that is significant or not to you.
What is what's normal practice out there? What percentage profile are we in on that? Say with the fire department not being accounted according to GAAP.
I haven't seen that too much out there. I don't,
So most of the municipalities are,
most record all their capital assets and then go ahead and depreciate them.
right,
You know, sometimes fire departments kind of see their stuff as a separate activity, and they like to present it in a way that they feel is appropriate. And so I obviously don't have the history going back to that decision on there,
I would think it-
but it's somewhat abnormal for that.
Have they been asked in the past? I know this came up before, you
Yeah.
know, and I just wondered if,
Yep.
is there a reason why they don't want to, that it would be hurtful to them, or?
No, it's
Okay.
it's just something.
They're volunteer
I
basis.
understand that.
It's
Well,
not
no,
required.
no, I mean, their
Administratively,
accounting is
time.
still volunteer as
Yeah.
well. They
Yeah,
don't
I
have a
get it.
professional
Yeah.
that's in there. But I just met with the person that took over their account, and if he sat here, he would be, he wouldn't have a clue what they're talking about.
Now, their
That's
reports, Pat, to the village were really bad
Right,
at one point. Dave sat down with them, I remember,
yep,
and those got better.
uh-huh,
So that at least now we see what the expenditures are for, and there's some accountability there.
yep. I know
But to
that.
get them to go to that next step, it's like Jim says,
Yeah.
they-
You'd almost have to
Not
incur the
staff.
cost of having a professional come in and set it up and then train every time that they do a turnover in that position in order for them to be able to do that accounting. And
Okay.
unless the board plans to pay for that, they don't have that budgeted in there.
So I just
in
wondered
there.
with depreciation of equipment, if that would be to their advantage if they
No.
were, no?
No.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it's not like you and I really get to depreciate, or a business gets to depreciate, and you get a better tax. We get to write it off on
But
our
I mean,
taxes.
if they
It
were
doesn't-
needing new equipment or something,
Yeah, I think of needing new equipment, like if, I think of when you apply for a loan, you have to give, I think of like a P&L sort of thing, or you have to give that sort of, would that be
Yeah.
beneficial in the future if they're looking at any kind of equipment purchases that maybe we have, maybe just bare bones?
Well, yeah, I mean, and just from the standpoint knowing what they have, right?
Yeah, and to say,
Um,
we've had this truck for,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
something.
I guess
Right,
that's what I was
but-
thinking when I meant.
Yeah.
But the other thing, with being a joint district, that's always been part of the issue as well. It's, we're not just controlling it on our own.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why, and
Yeah.
on top of that, it would complicate the accounting because it's a joint district as well.
Mhm.
So only a percentage of it would be Hortonville's, and another percentage of it would be
Or 20.
Hortonia's, and, yeah, you would, my opinion, you would have to get someone who really knows what they're doing to go in there and teach them and set it up so a layman could do it. And then every time they replace that person who was doing it, because it's a volunteer position, it just recently got changed, you would have to do it again.
Yeah.
Um, And it's, the only benefit is we don't have the piece on here, saying, you guys
Which
should be doing
isn't
that.
hurting the village at all.
Yeah.
No, that's why I was wondering why it was on here last year, but it might have had something to do with the inventory that we did, I don't know, I don't remember what it was.
We never
But
had
now,
that
Jim,
appraisal.
the district itself, the district board has records of what's there, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I think we have a good handle on.
They do, and
on
they have
what's
separate
there.
funds, and they provide a separate report in terms of
Yeah.
their equipment funds versus their general fund. And we just don't get into that sort of a detail after they have their meeting. And right now, their statements have taken a big step backwards, because they got someone new in the position who's doing the accounting. So we're gonna have to work with them and start, because the last 3 meetings that I went to, It's all laid out. It's really, really nice. Okay, here's where it was last year, here's where it was this year, here's the equipment we have, here's what our balance was, here's our special, here's our other funds, and here's this, and here's the EMPs, and here's our expenses, and here's our funds, and that's the way it has been. And now the last meeting I went to was, you throw your hands up and say, well, what the hell is this? So yeah, we're basically starting over just to get to a recognizable and readable spreadsheet. I'm not a finance guy, but I can.
Maybe there'd be a volunteer retired accountant that could.
Well, yeah.
They could
that-
help them. I mean, they couldn't volunteer to be a firefighter, but maybe they could.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that would be very nice if you know somebody.
If it, I don't, I'll keep my ears open.
Okay.
I mean, just a thought. It-
Yeah, I mean, they have available spots in their volunteer roster. They don't have to be
Right.
fighting fires.
Right.
I'm currently listed as a firefighter on there as well, just so I can do their IT.
Mhm. Okay.
But yeah, so if you know of anybody or run across someone, feel free to shoot them over there. But they're gonna be a struggle just to get back to recognize them.
Moving
Move on.
Are there any other questions for Greg?
Thank you. I didn't.
No, thank you.
I didn't mean to digress. I just
No.
was curious. about
We'll stop digressing.
that. I'm sorry.
She was elected too. You can ask questions,
Well,
not just
It's okay.
certain
That's why I go to the
individuals. And
meetings.
she's,
That's all right.
she was elected as well, so.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank
thanks,
you
Yep,
Jeff.
so
thank
much.
you.
We
Good night.
appreciate you coming
Thank
in.
you.
We'll move to B, R-19-20, resolution for preliminary plot approval of Wildwind 2 subdivision.
All right, I'm gonna take a little bit of that before Bob speaks. I've got some bullet points on my handout. The first one would be a permit for 0.15 acres of wetland disturbance has been approved. That would be where the wetlands, Blue Duck Court crosses these wetlands right here. So the DNR authorized road construction through those wetlands to service these 4 lots, which are really nice lots. You've got the Department of Administration preliminary plat approval in your packet. You've got the Department of Natural Resources NOI, which is a notice of intent for Wildland 2 has been approved. The updated engineer reviewed plan set is also in your packet, which is, I don't know if that's what's being showed there, I think that's it. The project manual, bid specs, that's all been sent out for quotes and stuff like that. The village, just today, me and Ron agreed to, I don't know if you can see it in your book, but where the pond is here, the largest pond for sediment control, we have actually 2 easements, one along the ditchway and then one between lots 45 and 46. We'd agree to eliminate the one between 45 and 46 and keep the 10-foot here because we've got actually a 40-foot grass swell through there that we can get a team of bulldozers through. So we don't need that one easement. And we think it would devalue the lot, and I think.
Yeah, somebody was looking at lot 45.
Yeah. So again, once we approve this tonight, I think Jim wants to start pre-selling.
Yes.
So there's also engineer's statement certifying his his review of the plans, and the developers agreement and covenants. I'm going to let Bob speak on those. We have them preliminarily done, but we want to make sure we get those signed before the next meeting.
When is the next meeting?
August something.
Just hand it out.
Should I question some of this?
This one,
Not
sure.
Sharing something, that's it. Yeah.
No, I mean, this,
Yeah.
just sign out this good.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it would be appropriate, in my opinion, to pass the resolution for preliminary plat approval tonight, but with certain conditions, and the statute allows for that. Because Jim does want to get going. We hadn't done this before because we wanted the, typically we like to have the development agreement at the same time. That's been worked on, and we're close if we're not there, but
Yeah, Jim, yeah, we can't blow it up too much, we're not gonna start from scratch, but you had some questions
Or
regarding.
just like, after I put the binder coat down, turn it over to you, it's in there that I have to maintain, so we get the dust down.
No, that's up until that point.
Okay, that's my
Yeah.
question. Is that-
Okay,
Once that goes
That's
down,
fine.
then you're
That's
free.
fine, I didn't, that's my question.
all right. But in any event, that agreement has not been signed, so whether or not you have some tweaks, Jim,
Not
or
now.
we do, I think it's very close. So one condition would be that the development agreement is executed by the parties, or can be executed by, I was thinking, the second meeting in August, if you're shooting for earlier than that, but, you know, we had passed the preliminary plan. That give us a month in case, because there's always delays.
Well, the first, I think we do already by the first week, first meeting.
Okay, if you want to do that, then,
Because the covenants are done, we just
Okay.
took them from the last one. and I
yeah,
don't see much-
that's the second part. That also, the village would approve the restrictive covenants, and those would include the homeowners association that kicks over from the first phase, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that, we haven't seen that final agreement there. And then the only other thing is, I don't know whether it's in the development agreement or it'll be a separate agreement for the temporary entrance.
Yeah, we just wanna make that an addendum.
Yeah.
I wanna draw that driveway coming in from the west.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll just be an addendum to the developer's agreement.
Yeah, do you wanna maintain that until all the homes are built? Instead of
Well,
the
I
development
don't think there'd be much to maintain, that's a good road, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing maintained on the road.
Yeah, no, I think we'll wanna maintain use of it by heavy equipment.
Sure.
Until the road.
What we're talking
it's-
about is it's on the very west end.
I'll see if I
Because
can-
we don't want the heavy equipment coming across phase one.
No, we don't.
So,
It's
but
up there on
so
the top left.
yeah, the access on the west end there is adequate for all your purposes.
It was built to town road specifications when I put it in.
Okay, and we just want to make sure that Carl wants to, you know, put provisions in there, just to make sure of its continued use as we expect it, that we have it in black and white.
Yeah, and I wanna do that too, because I don't want to upset the
And
first.
we'll discuss the duration of how long that should be maintained.
Yeah, so I guess those are the conditions, the development agreement and restrictive covenants with homeowners association and the temporary entrance, that those items be addressed, and if you're saying by the next meeting, that's fine.
I think so, I think Carl and I can get this hammered out, huh, Carl?
August 6th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And like the covenants is in the first phase, I think I got a group of people already wanna take over the homeowners association. You know, they wanna get
Yeah.
involved
and that's fine, as long as it's referenced in the second restrictive
Yeah,
covenants.
because we want them to help
Tie
pay,
together.
because at first phase, they're taking over the sign and the mowing the ditch in front.
Hmm.
You know, the homeowners association, we would like to get the second phase, that pay part of that too.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's not a lot of money,
No.
a couple bucks a month.
Okay,
So then we are looking for a motion.
unless there are questions.
Are there any other questions? So it'd be a motion, but it would be contingent on the, I guess I just wanna make sure I word that correctly.
Is it conditioned on the execution of the development agreement, temporary entrance agreement, and restrictive covenants, which include the homeowners association?
All right, and that is for R-19-20?
Correct.
Then I will make a motion to approve R-19-20 with the stipulations that Mr. Sorensen has, or Attorney Sorensen has indicated.
I'll second. Roll call.
Aye.
Julie? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We will move to C, R-14-20. Resolution of notice of future assessment for Wildwind 2 subdivision.
Yeah, so this will get recorded. I buried it here. But basically, put homeowners on notice. There it is. Because the final paving's not gonna be done as part of the development agreement. There's gonna be, it's gonna get up to binder stage, you know, and then it's gonna be on hold for a while. So that's gonna get assessed to future owners, and then, as you can see in there, the outlots or pond area, that's to be maintained. And the proposed development agreement had that maintained by the village, Carl, didn't it? Are you still okay with that, or like on the ponds?
Yeah, it's kind of 50-50 on townships, who does it, who doesn't, but ultimately, I think, we're assuming responsibility, but we also have the leverage to assess those property owners for maintenance of these ponds. So,
Right, and we can specially charge them, we don't have to go through the assessment process, but, I wasn't sure, you know, you were.
This is a typical assessment, not like the other one over there.
I do have a question though about the pond specifically, and I know that it doesn't have to do with the assessment, but if we maintain control of that, is there any additional liability on the village
No.
for having that pond?
No, you would think so, but there are so many ponds in the United States, and
Okay.
Doesn't seem.
to come back after the local government
Just
is.
making sure that if
Right,
somebody
where you
got
go.
hurt or drowned or something, that it's not the village.
No, otherwise, yeah,
City of Alton does it for all letters.
They'll read it.
Do we have,
Doesn't
Doesn't matter if they read.
Greenville's 50-50. They try not to do it, but
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're not putting ourselves in a situation.
no.
Okay.
And as far as, algae and stuff like that, if the ponds are constructed correctly, they tend to be okay. So I'm not saying they're incorrect.
I wouldn't want a pond like Tim was talking about, so.
Yeah.
yeah. Is there a trigger for this assessment for this, the
Top coat?
completing the streets and?
On number 7 there.
Number 7, sorry.
It will be, at the time the final paving's made, but it's not to be done, it's kind of our general, really, with 3
It's in the
years or
development agreement, too.
75%.
It's typically 75% or 3 years. 75% of the homes are built for 3 years regarding the top coat.
Okay. So what happens if 3 years from now we only have 30%? I don't see
We
Mm-hmm.
can
that.
push it off.
Yeah.
It's not unusual.
Okay.
It gives,
Yeah.
we have a lot of flexibility with the government, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do it if there was that type of a situation, we'd probably be addressing it.
So do
If you
we,
don't do it, and if you wait too long, then your binder, of course, is gonna break apart, and then you gotta
That's
start
just
from
it.
scratch. So you kinda have to watch, you have to base it on construction versus time. You can't leave it in that state for too long with just a binder course, because the binder courses are typically, more porous, and they'll get damaged easier by traffic and ice and
When are you gonna put the top coat in phase 1?
maybe next year.
okay.
And is the assessment based on the amount of frontage they have, or is it an equally distributed,
It's equally.
equally? Okay.
So in other words, I can go out and try to, after tonight, I can pre-sell these lots and start working on that now. Because I have a lot of interest in this, and what I'm trying to do is, try to pre-sell some lots. I got some builders interested. I didn't say too much until it started cool. So I'm gonna do a lot of advertising on it. I think I can pre-sell enough lots to get this thing going, myself, from the interest I've got already. So that's my goal. I think it'll move as fast as phase 1. They're nice lots, pre-secluded. I think we'll go pretty good.
Any other questions for Jim or anyone?
Jim, what's the average size of a lot?
Around an acre. Well, one's 17 acres, one's 10 acres, some are an acre, a couple might be just under an acre, 9 point something. They vary.
Which one would you sell me?
Well, I'm asking, I wanna get
Take
$300,000 for the pond lot,
How much?
300.
Ooh,
This one.
And actually had a guy wanted to buy it, but his wife didn't wanna drive down Highway 15.
Couple more years,
He was written for a check.
Peter, it's 40.
Right here.
There are
Where?
other ways to
Peter,
get into town.
It's 47. You want to write that down?
47 what?
Lot 47.
Oh, lot 47, okay.
Your down payment.
Well, I have to sell a few things off first, like 2
Well,
more
but
beds.
then, you know, them interior lots,
Like airplane.
if you see them interior lots there, there's 11 lots on the inside, them are some really nice lots. I'm thinking about putting 49.9 on them lots.
Would you be
No, it's-
interested in the trade?
Perhaps an L
Maybe a
something.
70 Charger or Hemi or something.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
But that's a good price, because I gotta stick $2,500 in it to sell it. I gotta test the soil, it costs $750 per lot, to see if it'll perk,
Mhm.
or what kind of mountain, you know, if a mountain system
Yeah,
or what.
well,
And then down in the wetlands down there, it might be a little more expensive on my end, you know. It's not cheap. They added that darn second pond that I wasn't expecting. That's a $150,000 swing, you know, that I didn't expect. And then in the cul-de-sac, we have to install a 400-foot concrete pipe, and it's 400 feet, and the pipe is $55 a foot. That's just the pipe. I mean, that's a $50,000 little pipe right there. No, it's $200,000.
yeah.
I mean, it just adds up, it's crazy. I mean, it's like phase one, we put them filtering ponds in there, Carl, you seen that. It's a joke. It's absolutely useless, $80,000. And they don't get, there's no water in them, rains. It's just unbelievable, you know. But it is what it is, you know. If you don't like what the DNR says, they'll just make you put 3 retention ponds in.
So we need a motion.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve R-14-20, resolution of notice of future assessments for Wildwind 2 subdivision.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, you didn't.
Motion carried. You're good to go, Jim.
Okay.
Go, Jim, go sell them.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start next week. I'm sticking about 10,000 in that pond area right now. I've worked on the dock, the well, and I got 5 semi-loads of mulch I put around, so I put a little fence, and I'm doing
I'm wondering.
But one more thing, not that doesn't pertain to this, across the road, my mother's property, you know, we had that zone of single family. We're looking at maybe redoing that, because we had a lot of interest in it. They had multifamily by the industrial park. And we're looking at, I've had Dable draw up a concept, we're gonna talk about it, our family. We might go with that concept, it's up to 30% condos, you know. So we might change that, because there's people interested in that concept,
A mix
a mix,
of residential, R1,
yeah,
and some R2.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think you could move the property then, and then you can put sewer and water in there. You know, you could probably put 40 acres, you could probably put 80 units in there,
Yeah.
60 to 80 units.
Oh, wait,
So,
Warner Street, you're right, you're right.
turn over your tax base. Yeah.
Who owns that?
Oh, a lot of things.
The whole family?
Yeah,
Okay.
we like to move it, but, you know, we don't wanna, we don't wanna see industrial or
Yeah,
R8 or
right.
stuff like that. But I think people who showed interest, if they could put R2 in there, they could probably buy it.
Mhm, I did, I made the motion.
So that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
So, just let you know that.
Yeah.
Can do 2 things.
No,
Thanks, man.
Okay, well, thanks for your help, guys.
Take
Thanks a
care.
lot, and I'm
Thank you,
excited to get
Jim.
this thing going.
Thank you.
Good night. We'll go to DR-18-20, preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 Wisconsin statute for streets construction improvements for Warner Street paving project.
I'll take this. I handed out the preliminary engineering report. It identifies state statute requirements. There's a map of the affected parcels. And there's an estimate of assessment on the back. All the potential assessees have been notified. Nobody, we've had one prepay almost 50% of their assessment. So I think we're ready to move forward, and I don't see any reason why we can't approve our -18-20. I do have some updates. Later on in the agenda, there's a discussion on temporary street closure on Warren Street. Unfortunately, the contractors are showing up the day before that, so we're gonna have to pull them off the project. It's tough getting contractors to actually show up, but the timing just didn't work, so. But they're willing to pull off and do something else that day, because that's the day of the graduation, and they're
Yeah.
doing that in a staggered graduation. they'll still be able to use the road. It might be down to the gravel and there'll be cones on manholes and stuff, but the kids will still be able to get in and out of the school. So we'll shut everything down and, let them use the road, so it's not the end of the world. And the school did ask us to put some additional barricades on there. We're gonna talk about that later, but for tonight, yeah, we're looking for approval for the preliminary resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve R-18-20.
I'll second that. Oh, wait, was that the one, on Carl's note here, it says at a certain percent interest. Do we need to talk about that?
And how many years,
Yeah.
yeah, before we
Oh.
approve it?
Yeah, didn't we, Jim, didn't we discuss we wanted, we typically don't assess a percentage the first year. I don't know if it's gonna even factor into this.
I only bring it up because you've got it on here, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, we should discuss it tonight,
Okay.
right, Bob?
Okay.
Because otherwise there's.
I'm recommending a 2-year assessment, because the school district, which is paying close to 81, well, yeah, almost 81%,
Yeah.
has prepaid 50% of their assessment. The others, are two large, reasonably well-off institutions. And then we have one individual property owner, and their assessments, I wouldn't say meager, but it's $3,800 in
Carl or Carol?
elevate, yeah. And that land is set fallow over there on that corner, a private commercial corner is settled there for 30 years, and
Oh.
I don't feel bad about assessing them, so. So I'm recommending 2 years at, what do we charge, Nate? 3%?
Three.
I think it was 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you guys what you wanna do. It's coming out of our, reserve fund for it, so it's not like we're taking loans, we're not taking, it's up to you guys.
I think typically we set the rate on some of these other ones at 3%.
That's what all the other.
Why don't we just keep it standard?
Sounds good.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. In over 2 years.
Yeah, and there's a good chance we'll have most of that back this year, so.
Okay.
Like Nathan said, it may be a moot point, so.
All right, so Peter made that motion.
Yeah, but I'm gonna amend it.
Okay.
I'm gonna it's R-18-20, preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703, Wisconsin statutes for street construction improvements for the Werner Street paving project to be paid in 2 equal installments at 3% interest.
I'll second it.
Let's do a roll.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. We'll now go to E, temporary street closure, Warner Street, July 28th, Hortonville Area School District graduation.
Is there anything in your packets for that?
Yes.
There's a letter.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, Tom Allenbecker's letter?
Yeah, Tom called me today when he found out that, anywho, Tom asked if we can, stop the project on that date, and that's not a problem. And, we're gonna drop some barricades off so they can block off, you don't pay for that. Anyway, they would like to close Warner Street, well, open it back up from construction, but close a certain section of it so kids can cross from the elementary school over to the high school football field. It's difficult to see on a black and white, but basically they're gonna allow the kids into the entrance to the bus parking. And we're gonna block it off after that point, or the exit from the bus parking at the middle school. Yeah. And then where the orange marks are where Tom's asking us to set up barricades. So yeah, that's perfectly feasible. We're more than happy to do it. I think the kids deserve it. They haven't been in school in forever and got cheated out of their spring sports. So whatever we can do to help them. Yep. Tom did ask if I can update my project notice to reference that this road's gonna be, construction will be halted and the road will be open for students. So we'll get that done tomorrow morning.
You just need a motion
No,
I'm not sure, well,
or?
this is more just a heads up,
Head
Yeah.
nod?
yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's okay?
yep,
All right, go ahead, Carl.
All right.
Then we will go to F, open discussion in regards to quarterly financials.
Any questions you guys have on it?
no.
I was just gonna show you an update to our reserve accounts up here. This is the total spent so far in 2020, right there. Keep in mind, 150,000 of that is for the Warner Street project. Basically, if we go to our future project funds, you can see that the 150 is there. We got the 60,000 from the school, so we're at 80 there. Then we're kind of keeping track. The or the Public Works garage, which was approved at 31,000, is around 14 left. The police truck is that one we already took care of. Veterans Pier and Warner Street there. So this is kind of how we're keeping track now, financially for these projects that have been approved. So.
Yeah, it's easier for department heads to keep track of.
Right.
And report on. Like I said, Warren Street, we'll have most of that money back this year, which is nice, so. Or a big chunk of it anyways.
Nathan, is there anything on the quarterlies that you feel you need to point out that, other than just giving it to us, is there
I
something?
think the notes that came with it, probably answered any questions that might have popped up.
Okay.
That's kind of the way I went through it. But there's still the error with the, library that we're still working on. Other than that,
Okay.
is there any questions at all, or?
So we have both the garages, the one,
The one from last year,
yeah,
that one I don't have tracking on that, because that was something that we just started this year, myself and Jane, was this updated one that we're doing for tracking all the capital projects. I think Jane was tracking the Public Works one last year.
This is an all-inclusive spreadsheet.
Well, you tracked it at the end, we looked
Right
at it.
after.
Right after,
After the fact.
yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
so.
And that garage you're listing is the one that's right,
correct, it's right here,
okay.
so,
That one doesn't have an overrun.
no, not yet.
Not yet.
The other one did.
Is it
You
tracking
checked?
for an overrun?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm expecting it to be a little number.
Okay.
How much was the overrun on the other one?
Jane, I think, had that, it was,
Well, define overrun, I mean, do we wanna,
Which-
Above
Over bid?
estimated
Is that what
cost.
you're saying?
Actual cost above.
What was it?
actual costs were probably, actual cost versus what was presented to you cost?
Right,
Yeah, the approved
The
amount
approved
versus
amount
what
versus
was
actual.
paid.
right.
Then why are we just hearing about this?
Oh, we heard
I mean,
yeah.
no, I understand, but how come we weren't told it went over?
It's around that 10,000 mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
10 or 12?
10 to 15, but
Yeah, you know,
it depends on how you, it's like balancing books, it depends on how you look at it and how it's presented.
well, it was presented to us in one way, but the actual cost was 10 to 12,000 more than what we had approved.
Which doesn't make any sense.
So,
Usually then it gets brought back to the board to approve that.
yeah, for cost increases.
And it
Yeah.
did not.
Yeah, most of us didn't really realize that until after the fact.
Well, this will stop.
This will stop now.
Yeah, okay.
And
That
that's
was
why
the
we started
solve
this.
of that issue.
Thank you for.
It's-
Kudos to you
that.
guys.
Yes,
It's
thank
about
you.
transparency, I mean, we can
I don't-
only guess why things,
Well, let's go on.
Okay.
Yep. I just was curious if the other one was on. Okay.
We'll now move on to G, discussion approval to proceed with land sale, Alonzo Park, Heritage Animal Hospital.
I don't
It's up
know,
there.
I don't know how much you guys know about the history of what we call the Hunt property, the piece we purchased next door. When we were buying that, actually, we wanted it for the last 20 years. Dick Hunt always wanted $150,000 for it, and I said, no way. Anyways, things changed, time went on, Mr. Hunt passed away, and then I think Mrs. Hunt passed away. Anyways, the family wanted to get rid of the property. So I told them all we could offer was appraised value, and they accepted that. So appraised value ended up being $27,500.
Right.
So I went through Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant, and I was going to get a grant for $27,500 for the property. But when we got close to decision time, did we take the grant, or do we sign the grant paperwork? I advised the village board at that time that if we take that grant, we could never do anything with that property. That if we ever wanted to sell the front, I think you were on the board then.
I was.
And the board at that time decided to not take the grant, which was a 50% grant, so it was whatever 27.5 divided by 2 is.
Right.
Anyways, I advised the board, and the board agreed that we wouldn't take the grant, just in case we wanted to sell that front piece to a commercial business, because all Public Works wanted was the back for trails and nature and all that good stuff. And so that's where we're at today. The land is still viable to us, and I think the spirit of the board at the time was, if somebody come along and wanted to develop there, we should give it a shot. Because we never really wanted the frontage, because we're trying to develop our, what I call our commercial corridor through town. So anyhow, Doctor, should that even be up there?
I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. Anyways, this certain person wanted,
It's in the packet.
yeah, it's in your packet, was looking at buying the land next to Govert's, but we talked him into moving across the street.
And the reason for that was,
The potential for a dog park.
yeah, for dog park. So it would be behind their building, behind their parking lot, and it would encompass a dog walk for them and a dog park for the residents, along with nature trails.
Nature trails, yeah.
And the Hortonville Civic Association would partner with the village and the building owner to build it.
As you know, some of the wetland rules have been relaxed a little bit.
Right.
Whereas the village can't do a lot of stuff in the wetlands, but private developers have a little more leeway when you're talking an acre or less. So if we were to move forward with selling this property, I'd probably get Bob's opinion, but I would make it on condition that they can get approval to build. If not, then we would get it back.
How much are we talking about selling it for?
Well, that, yeah,
Shouldn't be
we haven't
discussed
discussed
in
that.
open.
No, that
Huh?
can't be
Should
dis-
not be discussed in open.
Yeah.
If-
We haven't
Yeah.
gotten
If-
that far yet.
Okay.
I'm not,
If we got an offer, it'd be different.
yeah, this is
Yeah,
not a
I
kid.
mean, you can, if for negotiating purposes, a lot of times we do those in close because we don't wanna let the other side know what we're looking for.
Yeah. Right.
exactly. But, that's the
Since,
reason.
since we paid 27.5 for 7 acres, I would divide 27.5 by 7. And if we wanted to be fair, or you charge,
There's more value to the front than there is to the
yeah,
back.
this is not a TID driven, so
No.
we owe it to the taxpayers to get what we can get for it.
Right.
Does this, help me out with the geography here. I remember we did some electrical, or the Civic Association did, is that area, or am I thinking?
That's a lot.
No.
It's where the trees
Right,
are.
Alonzo, but it's right at that tree line, didn't we do the
It's
electrical?
on the Alonzo Park, or lot line. It's not into the field.
Okay,
And if we retain that back part, it wouldn't matter
it
anyway.
would matter, so the electrical would service possibly the back part if we ever wanted to use that electrical.
You could serve the
Well,
dog park and
yeah.
anything we do
Yeah,
back there.
Work
Okay.
out the there.
Right.
Would we be able to maintain easement to put a future, I know there's discussion of extending the lane from Greendale into the downtown. Would we have the ability to do that?
But that wouldn't be on this part, right?
Right.
No?
I would,
Because it
I
would
plan
just be
to-
the front part of this land. The back part that touches the lake is nowhere near.
Okay, but what you're talking about for a bike trail is not the front, it's the back.
Correct.
Okay,
although we probably want both.
that would connect to the Greenville
But that-
trails.
Well,
via
the front would be in our
515.
right of way, though.
Yeah.
It would be within the
within the right of way. I just wanna make sure that we're maintaining
Although,
that.
we could probably put in the developer's agreement to get, 5, 10 feet, because where I planted the
Yeah.
trees are about 10 feet back onto our property. And I would like to have the trail just in front of the trees.
Yes,
So we can do whatever we want with the CSM.
okay.
Right, and we're gonna have to have a developer's agreement on this, there's too many,
I love the
things
idea of a
we
trail in the
want
back,
here,
but
so.
having a trail in the front too, that goes and connects with that whole Greendale into the Greenville trails along
Yeah, how are you gonna
15.
connect it? Where would you go?
Well, right now, this
Can't
is
go
the
across.
property, so everybody knows, right here. See on the screen here.
Right.
I planted these trees right across here roughly, about 10 feet back from the property line. So if we urbanize Main Street with the jurisdictional transfer, then, maybe we put 6-foot sidewalks in. Otherwise, we'll just put a 10-foot trail through here. That may or may not be on the property line. But we'll
I
have to
just
kick
think
it
of-
back out here regardless.
To use even to get back to the dog park. Yeah, you can do
Yeah.
it through Alonzo. but it
Oh,
would be-
yeah. Yeah. What Peter's asking is,
How do you connect? You can't go across,
the DOT is bringing the trail right here.
Mhm.
oh, they are.
Yeah,
Part of our jurisdictional transfer is if we only need, we're gonna pressure the county to help build a trail. through
Okay,
here.
so you build it along the,
What road
and
is
that literally would
This is
connect
Greendale.
right
That's
here,
Greendale?
it would
Okay.
connect right to the Greenville trails.
yeah, right.
Which would be amazing.
They're gonna, they're
I'm
gonna
disappointed the deal, I don't know what's on the website.
You're gonna bring it all the way from Greenville trails to there?
We're
Yeah,
bringing it all the way from Greenville, and ending it at our village limits.
that's part of the Highway 15 project, is a
Yeah.
trail that goes from Lily the Valley all the way to Greendale Road, a trail.
Does it go
But
alongside?
the DOT
Why
is
they
putting it
think the
inside
whole-
Greenville, but they won't put it inside work.
In
Yeah.
Hortonville,
Right.
not
Is that
Hortonville.
going alongside the highway, or is it
Yes.
going
Yeah.
further?
That becomes J,
Okay.
Highway J,
I don't know if you guys
not,
noticed,
not
there's been
15 anymore.
I stand corrected.
they've been doing preliminary work through here, moving
Yeah.
utilities, and they moved quite a few septic systems back through here.
Yep,
You can see the right of way is much further back now.
yeah.
So then, yeah, the trail's gonna come right through here. And right here. We looked at several options, running along the creek here, or staying along Main Street. If we went along the creek here, we'd almost be to this property here, which we owned it here. So that would actually be a pretty trail through there.
Yeah, it
too.
would.
And then you connect to the Whitewash Trail easier.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're one property owner away from the Whitewash Trail,
yeah.
Yeah,
but
He won't-
they won't sell
he
it.
won't do it.
You go out.
So the best we can do is along Main Street. These people might sell, but we still have to go through that one property owner, and he won't sell it. He might here, but he won't sell this part.
No.
Uh,
He said when if he
Actually,
departed, he said his kids would deal with it.
actually, we should reach out to him and see if he'd sell this piece.
Yeah, but I think, and understanding how 15 and the trail goes through there, I think, long-term wise,
Well,
yeah, it'd be smart to
we're gonna want
have.
the trail along Main Street anyways, for kids going to school, all that good stuff.
Yep, there's a lot of kids that actually walk in the gravel from
You know,
Kelly Way. I'm sure you see it when you go to work in the morning, but I see it a lot of times. There's kids that walk like Kelly Way all the way to like the schools, just along the gravel there on Highway 15 in the mornings
all right,
and after school.
I think we're getting off
So
track.
then we're
Yeah, we
down
are.
to,
Okay,
But to maintain, if you're looking at this, maintain some of that frontage.
We
so
can do that
can
for CSM and waive
Yep.
through all the
and
lots.
like Bob said, we'll probably need a developer's agreement with
yep,
them.
definitely put it on the.
So-
for the
And have
developer's agreement.
certain stipulations in there for things like this.
So we need an approval to move forward to proceed with the discussion on the sale of the land?
Yeah, I think that's why it's on the agenda, Mike, it's just a head nod to look into it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been discussed at our discretion, but we don't have any authority to do any wheeling and dealing. so-
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So there would be an interest, I guess.
so it's
Sounds
just a
like,
head nod?
depending on the terms,
Yeah,
right?
depending on the
I
term.
think that's the thing, to make you aware of
Yeah.
that.
Do we
If
bring
somebody
that
had a
back
big
to
objection, we-
facilities
Huh?
No.
No,
No,
bring it back to the board.
or Cal?
Yep.
Bring it back closed session.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
fine.
Okay, then we will now move to H, Lincoln Street change order, 2020 paving and utility project.
All right, what I'm doing is looking for a change order on Lincoln Street. I believe it's in your packet. Originally, we were gonna do a full polarize of the northbound lane of Lincoln Street, the 600 block. But after discussing some options out there with Dan, Public Works Chairman, we're gonna do a simple mill, 1.5 mill. That's basically where you just grind off 1.5 off the top. And we're gonna do some spot repairs and then overlay the whole thing. And I can do from curb to curb for roughly the same price. So we're just changing the scope, not too much the price. So it's actually a little less, but it doesn't include that spot repair, which is gonna be a few thousand. So it's gonna be roughly the same, maybe a few dollars more for, again, doing curb to curb. The reason that road's being repaved is when it was constructed in the wintertime, and they put frozen material back in there and all that
Yeah.
good stuff.
So Carl, because this is amending what we originally,
We're just amending the scope, not so much the
But-
price.
how do you want us to word, do you want a motion for this, I'm
Is
guessing?
that in my,
It's on there, and I put his stuff down here.
just motion to approve, I didn't have it read, motion to approve Lincoln Street change order.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the Lincoln Street change order number 1 for Hortonville Utility Paving Project. Contract modification dated 6/25/2020.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. I, wastewater treatment plant SBR blower VFD purchase.
Again, this was something I had to pre-authorize to get it ordered. This company, we're buying it from the company that reps it, so it's the identical unit. It's in there, it's not something you can go down to Walmart or the electric store to get. This is a $10,000, well, it's probably $8,000 VFD by the time you get it wired up, so. Again, it's something we had to do. I already ordered it, but I need to get official approval for it.
I'll make a motion to approve the quote for new VFD from B&M Technical Service Incorporated for $10,046.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. J is O-8-20 firearm ordinance. And who wants to take this? Chris? Or?
Sure. We had a public safety meeting, and after going back and forth with Jim and I think we came up with a solution. Both Bob Sorensen and the Muni Code attorney both viewed it, and then we brought it back to Jim. He kind of looked it over, and I think we came to an agreement.
Are there any major changes from when we met that night, or?
Not a lot. I mean, there was a couple of small things that were taken out, in terms of like shooting at other people, because I think that's covered somewhere else, you know, intentionally shooting. But the gist of what we worked out is that real firearms discharge with legal exceptions are a violation. And when it comes to the bow, there's some things that are listed in here that put the onus for responsibility on the person operating. And then as well, if anything should happen, then puts them in a position where they're violating the ordinance. BB guns and small caliber Nerf guns and pellet guns and airsofts, things like that, puts them in a position where the spirit is to provide an avenue for the police to provide some enforcement if something should go wrong, where you're crossing a property line or doing damage, so that we don't have to go to the individuals involved don't have to go to a criminal complaint with the county for civil property damage or whatever it is. So as long as we're not trying to legislate responsibility, but as long as they stay responsible, they won't be in violation. But if people begin to act in an irresponsible manner or in a way that accidentally causes damage, then there's some recourse for the police department to step in, provide fines and an avenue for restitution.
So, does this exclude BB guns
It
or
includes.
includes?
It includes them. It does not, it does not make them illegal to use in the village.
Okay,
It does say if you are using it,
And you cause
you are
damage.
responsible, right? If you do damage, if you discharge it and it crosses over property lines, or it
shoot
does
your eye
damage to.
out type thing?
Well, you shoot your own eye out there, that's,
Yeah.
but if you shoot your neighbor's car from a ricochet,
Yeah, right.
and it breaks, and it does damage,
Then you're liable.
then we can call the police and we
Okay.
can, and you can get involved. But
So,
if the neighborhood kids are doing target practice in the backyard, you can't call the police department and complain about them.
what about bow and arrow? Is that?
It's
there
very
too?
similar, in terms of, there's some restrictions that you can't use, tips that are designed for hunting. You have to use tips specifically designed for target practice.
Okay.
You're required to have an appropriate, backdrop that is designed to stop, the momentum of the projectile. And just the same as with the BB guns and pellet guns and things like that, if you do cross over property lines or you do damage, then you have a liability that you're going to incur. As well as the restrictions for the distance. I think we ended up with 100
Yards.
yards from neighboring property,
Oh,
or neighboring structure, from a structure that you don't own for the most part.
100 yards?
Unless you get permission, unless you get written permission from the adjacent owner.
Oh, okay,
And if you do get, even if you do get permission, if you do damage, you're still liable.
right. So it doesn't exclude anybody that wants to do target practice for bow and arrow season?
Correct.
This
You just have to be smart about
100
how you're doing
yards,
it.
but they have to stay within that.
Yeah, and if you're smart, and most properties, I think, most neighbors are gonna be decent, so if you're gonna be
Yeah.
reasonable, you can talk to your neighbor and get them to just scribble you a note, or you can go to the far edge of your property and shoot or practice in a direction that is potentially going to be far enough away from the next property if you have if you're not close confined.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to avoid, is really close confined,
Mhm.
somebody where, hey, if you slip a little bit, you're gonna, kill the neighbor's dog kind of thing. We want to avoid, in the small lots, you're not gonna, you'd have to get all of your neighbors to sign. But in the places where you have larger lots, you might be able to get away with doing it on your own, and you might, without anything, and you might have to have your one neighbor's permission.
Under the current ordinance, is it a violation if you discharge a pellet gun within the village limits?
We have nothing for.
Oh, we have nothing, okay, okay, so that sets a standard. I'll make a motion to approve O-8-20, the new firearm ordinance.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. K, veteran graves payment approval for the county.
We do this every year, we just need approval from you that this is all good for Allegheny County for the veterans' graves.
How much is it?
We get around 400 or so.
That's what I thought.
309.23.
Oh,
309.
300.
Okay, I don't have that up here.
So,
Thank you, buddy. Okay,
We need an approval, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we need an approval motion to approve it, to pay it.
so move.
We get paid.
I'll second.
Yeah, we get paid.
We get paid by the county then.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. L, mass requirement in the village hall.
I'll take that one.
This-
I met with, the police chiefs on Tuesday for a meeting, and one of the things that they were discussing was, Outagamie County is potentially looking at the entire county going to, a mask restriction. Most of the, jurisdictions, we spoke with, Appleton Police Department, of course, now they have in every Appleton building that's owned by the city has to have a mask. Outagamie County went to the same thing. Fox Valley Metro has something a little bit different. They actually have a login, so, and I think it's just the way that their building's set up that as soon as you walk into a door, there's somebody there to greet them. They have to log in. Basically what they're doing is they're trying to prevent the spread, and they're also, Fox Valley Metro is using it for tracing. If potentially somebody within their department ends up testing positive for COVID, then they can go back and they can see who was in the building. I'm not really sure. I think it's just something that we probably want to look at. I know that Ally's done it with the library. I see everybody getting out of their car. The first thing they do is they're putting on their masks. There's stores on top of stores on top of stores that are adding to the list of chains that are requiring the masks, that people wear the masks. There's some different agencies where, like Appleton, their board meetings and stuff like that, they're not requiring them. They're not requiring them for the people that are working behind, but if a citizen would come in and pay the water bill or something like that, they would require them to have a mask on. As long as you can keep the 6-foot distance and there's partitions actually in our workspaces, we would be okay. Just to let you know, I'm not sure what's gonna go on with the county. I know that there's talk. He's reached out to quite a few mayors, and, you know, trying to get the whole county on board to do that. So, we've had people coming in and wanting to do fingerprinting. We are refusing to do fingerprinting for CCW, but if it's for some type of employment, because we're having close physical contact with them, we're still trying to limit that. You know, if we're dealing with people who are, we get called to their house, we're trying to get them to come out to the front porch so that we can talk to them instead of going in. Every week we're looking at our so-called policy and updating that as the numbers are either increasing or decreasing. So I'm not sure if that's something that we want to do in the village hall.
What are your feelings in the office?
Well, we're behind the glass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
it's not, like, the
And we're not
people on the
going
outside
in.
aren't the issue. I think if anything, it would be trying to limit access into the offices.
Which we already are.
Which we kind of are already.
Yeah.
For a while, there's been people coming in and out, but, I mean, I think we keep our glass shut. It's not like the windows are open on us, so.
We're just the opposite. So we last week had a sexual assault that we were investigating. And through that whole investigation, we probably had 15, 20 people coming in and out, and there's no requirement for masks. I mean, I can tell each one of them, please put on a mask, but now we're bringing them back into our area. We don't know who they've been exposed to. And, you know, the guy that I did fingerprints the other day, I said, please, can you put a mask on? So he didn't have one. So I furnished him with a mask, and I put a mask on. I made him wash his hands, you know, because if I get it, then I'm probably going to pass it on to one of my full-timers, and I'll pass it on to Julie. And if I go over by Nathan, and if I go over by Carl, if I stop by all of them, I just infected everybody.
So what I'm hearing is that the office itself is already isolated and they've got a physical
Right.
barrier, right? I mean, we individually, we make our own choices here. But what I'm hearing you say is you would like the police department to have something that says masks are required over there.
I think so. I don't know.
But
I
does
don't think it would
that
hurt to have
mean
it
the whole,
on the
but
doors.
does that mean the whole
Anybody
building
entering.
has to?
Well, I think about, like, today I was here signing vouchers and I heard Jim Clegg come in, but then there was somebody right before him, that they were behind those doors, correct?
True.
And there's people that are being brought back into the admin area.
We were discussing about coming in here more with
people.
outside parties, that's what I was discussing with Lisa
Okay.
today about,
John Doe walking through the door.
Well,
Well,
and put on the agenda.
them
just
usually
kinda
are
maybe know
fine.
Who's
It's-
all, you know, how many people are really going in there.
it's,
Don't you lock that door?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like Clegg when he comes in, and there's
Oh,
certain.
yeah, but like you said, you could bring Clegg in here.
Right, and that's kind of,
This is a lot more unrestricted
right.
area.
Would you then put a mask on, Nathan, if you brought?
I walk into the library, I wear a mask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying
I
that,
don't have
And
an
then-
issue wearing one.
yeah, so if you're outside of that, then you prefer that be a requirement, right?
I don't think if we heard it all, we put signs on the doors saying masks are
If they come
required.
inside the departments, they gotta wear a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
Inside
don't
the
have to
building.
make them, I don't feel like wearing a mask myself, but if somebody wants to come in and wear a like, then that's fine with me. But like even the meeting here, I don't feel like wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's where I'm going, is that a number of us have, make decisions that, that we make our own personal decisions whether we want to wear a mask or not. We can look around the room. So it troubles me to sit here and say to somebody else, well, we're good enough to make our own decisions, but you're not. We're gonna tell you what to do, but we're gonna make our own decisions. So that's the part that bothers me.
So basically, you'd be saying when we come into a meeting, we have to wear a mask.
No, just
Unless
if
you
it's
allow
in
them.
there.
Well, we're all together.
Well,
What is the difference?
No, oh, if you're saying
know
the
what I'm saying?
whole building.
You're demanding the whole building,
Yeah.
then that means this room.
We're
Well-
looking at, the biggest thing is that if you can maintain 6 feet, or where we were back there, we were dealing with the sexual assault, we had several people in a room, we couldn't maintain 6 feet, and we were within 6 feet for over 15 minutes.
So what if we say masks are mandatory if 6 feet can't be accommodated?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because that's fair, right? So if the situation doesn't allow for 6 feet, a possible 6 feet separation, then you mandate it.
But
Other than that,
Shauna, how can you control the 6
Yeah.
feet though?
Yeah.
People
No,
are-
you can't control the 6 feet, but in her situation specifically, she said it wasn't possible. So,
So
you
then
know,
on her door.
but in these situations, if someone comes in like Jim Clegg, there is a possibility of 6 feet here. So now the protocol is to bring them here, and you maintain your 6 feet in here.
But my point is, it's not the possibility, it's people invade that 6 feet.
You do, and you can't
And we have
control.
post
No, but we're-
stalkers, if nothing else.
but
Let's
we're-
face it, we all know people who unknowingly and unintentionally
Yeah.
come within 6 feet.
So
That's a
what-
problem.
Would a compromise be if we have strangers? I mean,
Visitors?
I'm next to Nathan every day.
Right.
If either one of us got it, I'm pretty sure the other one would.
They've adopted their own protocol.
Yeah, and so is the
Like
library.
Well, the library has, and so has the admin office.
Right,
So why don't you just adopt your own?
yeah.
That's.
And not put signs on the door, because then you're gonna run into a situation, I think, like
Yeah.
Jim said.
Right, but we can say, if we, like in your situation, we could say, if we're gonna have 12 people in this space,
Yeah.
we
So
have to
no,
figure
I
it out.
don't
but-
think, I think she should just
Do
put it
her
on
own.
her
Yeah.
PE door.
Right.
Right, inside the offices, as long, if you go beyond the front entryway,
Yeah,
then
masks
you
required
can-
beyond this point.
right.
No different than admin. I think if somebody came in and talked, I think of Jim Clegg. And I'm not trying to pick on Jim, that's not at all, but that was where I was signing vouchers and I could hear Jim's voice and he was here.
We had 2 visitors, one had a mask and one
Yep.
didn't.
I noticed that, so,
But yeah, if we wanna do that, we should certainly be able to do that without bothering the board, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, you
But
just
now-
make your own decision.
if the county issues a mandate,
I'm just letting you know that it could be coming
I
down.
think it's coming.
I
Mhm.
think it's coming too.
I might be considered a Fruit Loop once again, like I was before when I said would there be a shutdown, everybody didn't believe me, but I think mandate for
Chicken
masks.
Little.
That's still
But
an
you
if,
know,
but
at this
maybe
point-
it's.
But it happened.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
we're getting off track.
At
here.
this point,
But masks may be mandatory.
Hortonville Schools is not demanding it.
For their staff it is, for their staff
So,
it is.
you've got all these kids that don't have masks, so I mean,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? Whether it's the county or whatever.
Right.
So I mean, it should be your individual, how you
Policy.
feel.
Yep.
So you
You
make
just
the
set your own.
decision.
Preach your own.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm
Okay.
just-
And you absolutely, I think what I'm hearing is you have the blessing that if you want
Sure.
people coming, obviously that small vestibule in the PD, not a big deal, but if they're going beyond that door, you have the right then to say,
Well, and a lot of times we have how many different families walking in that little lobby area. So we would have to post something probably out on the outside, that if they're going into there, because we could have 4 different people in there for fingerprints.
Well,
Yeah.
you
It's
make
your
the
space,
decision.
you figure it out.
and
Yeah.
that it's your
You figure out what
discretion.
We don't need to discuss it any
Yep.
further. I
Okay.
think it's your
Okay.
decision.
But I just basically wanted to let you know about,
Well, thank you.
you know, him going around and possibly putting that out there, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll move to M. Any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
We've got a couple of bullet points.
Looks like we do have a couple. Does anyone have anything else?
I just want to mention the committee of the whole next Tuesday. Is it next Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Wednesday, yeah.
you're changing the date out.
Sorry.
Killing us, Carl.
Already confused if it is.
Okay, we'll move to 10, report of village official. A, clerk treasurer.
I don't have anything at this point.
B, director of public works.
I just have one, our mini excavator. We did 2 repairs this week, that normally we would contract out, that we're able to do with that nice little mini excavator, which, one was, the storm sewer repair on Main Street, which I'm fighting with We Energies and Intercon about responsibility. They bored through our sewer main, through our storm sewer about in 2011. And now they're fighting me. They want pictures of us locating it in 2011, otherwise they're not gonna pay. So we didn't take pictures back then, so. And we repaired a curb box in a yard right over here, so. Again, little projects that many is now, we're not contracting out, so. It's a nice little machine, so. It'll pay for itself in no time. That's all I really have.
We'll move to C, police chief.
I passed out the, calls for service for June. Anybody have any questions?
You know my typical question. Can you give me your typical answer? Cottages on Main?
Nothing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We're getting more and more, different things. So for instance, a lot of, Davian's properties have sold. So we received, an email from somebody wanting to know if they can be alerted as far as like any kind of, activities that's happening on their property by their tenants. So we respond back to those. We were just going through, there was, one of them, Blue Frog Management Group, that just sent us an email with, quite a few, addresses on it, so, when something pops up at that, it's great because they're staying ahead of it and wanting to know what's going on at their properties.
Can we back up to Carl for a second? Carl, is there anything we can do about the weeds at cottages? They're extreme.
Where are they at? I mean, it depends on where they're located.
Well, they're up
All
on
around the
that,
pond.
kind of that hill, and I understand that's an issue, but,
The hill behind Charlie's,
yeah,
that's supposed to be vegetative coverings. No, we can't do anything about
okay,
it. It's supposed to be prettier.
okay.
Weeds.
It's weeds.
It's weeds.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Typically, wildflowers and that type of stuff take 3 to 4 years to really
It
come in.
makes our village look like,
Yeah.
Well, I suppose nobody's stopping you from sprinkling wildflowers while you're down
Yeah.
to Charlie Eaton.
Yeah, but that's, takes a long time to.
They did plant a vegetative cover, but it got taken over.
I'm
picturing Sound of Music happening.
Oh.
It takes time.
I'm sorry, it just looks
I get
bad,
it.
you know.
Even our wildflower pit up here is taking, it took a number of years to start filling in, so. I'll take a look at it again, because I am the weed commissioner.
Didn't they,
Yes, you are.
And
Yeah.
around the pond.
with that
So I've
pond,
heard.
didn't they originally
Around the
have some
pond.
sort of aeration in there?
I don't know, they're not required. There's no law saying they have to have aeration.
I thought there was when they first put it in, there
I
was
know
something.
that it's mosquitoes, yeah.
These were the developers.
No, I think they were pumping or something out of there, but
Okay,
it's hideous and it's deep. and
yeah,
It's not, you spend, our pond next to Wolf River Bank, now I have an aquatic biologist who planted it and who maintained it the first 3 or 4 years. I have somebody come in and remove muskrats. So we spend $1,000 a year maintaining that pond. Now, will a company like that? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see this of them in New London. So I don't understand, maybe New London's
I think it's
being
just the
a little
location, it's
stricter?
right out in front of, in everybody's face.
I don't
Well, I mean,
know.
I've seen, my sister lives in an apartment complex, not second housing, but, and they have a nice, big, beautiful, you know.
I think part of the problem is that, I think they made it deeper, but compacted, so the sides are, it's not a pretty pond.
Yeah,
It's not like the one out here that has cattails around the edge, cause you have a nice shelf.
I mean,
It might
even,
take a number of years before that to look good.
I mean, even the one behind the fire station doesn't look like, I mean, it's overgrown, it's cattails everywhere, but
Yeah,
it doesn't, you know.
yeah.
At the worst time of the summer, you know, it's got about a 3 to 4 foot, you know, top where it's on the water, where the algae grows, but it's not like this where you got an inch of algae on top of the rocks as the water went down and it just stays there.
Yeah, just see
I'll
what you
take a
can
look at
do.
it, I guess I haven't paid attention to it because it's
Yeah,
kind of out of our purview, but we'll.
yeah,
we'll
maybe
look at
just
it.
check
If
it
you
out.
see
if you
somebody,
can.
maybe suggest a power washer would be a nice little, you know, touch up for the community, cause it stinks too. When you walk past, I walk past it, it stinks.
Bring our weed cutter.
Yeah.
Kinda reminds you of the pond, doesn't it?
It's worse, cause it's confined.
Okay.
We know what it smells like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
I can't even open my windows.
We can move on now to library director. Ally?
I only have a few. Since we've opened on June 8th, we've had 25 new card registrations, which is pretty significant considering people are spacing out when they come in. So it's been pretty regular signing up people with new cards. The majority of people have come in and said they've recently moved to the area. So that's kind of nice to hear that they prioritize coming in to get a card. Our online summer program is pretty low this year, but that's system-wide. Everybody's online reading program is low this year. We attribute it to a couple different things. After the schools closing down and moving to online learning, most people are just sick of being online. And it's not something we've done in the past, so it's gonna take some getting used to. But the state of Wisconsin received a grant to supply that particular app and website to all Wisconsin public libraries through 2023. So it'll take some getting used to. This particular computer program lets us have programs year-round, so we can do seasonal things. So we're anticipating more turnout as long as we can partner with teachers to kind of incorporate it into their weekly classroom reading or something like that. The Friends of the Library has their book sale out in the hall. I encourage everyone to take a peek. So far, it's gone really well. It started on the 29th of June. It ends on the 31st, so that we didn't run into any issues with in-person absentee voting for the August election, but there's the potential of putting it back up after that. I'm gonna check in with Jane and Nathan with that. And so far, we've raised quite a bit. It's all by donation, so we don't put prices on anything, and the majority of people are very generous. They think a book is worth more than what we generally price it at for the book sale, so it's been pretty nice so far.
Works out better.
It really does.
Less
3
work.
weeks and it's
Yes.
amazing.
I spent $10 on 2 puzzles today, so.
That's good.
Well, and kudos to the staff too.
Yeah.
Because normally we, and they always work the sale with us too, but we haven't obviously had volunteers working a sale and setting up and taking down, so.
It's been very slow moving things out of storage. Generally when we're set up in here, everything moves a lot faster. But if we can extend it after the August election, we're hoping to at least clear some of our storage stuff out. We're not taking any donations right now because we have no space for it. So, hopefully this gets things moving a little bit more for us. So, that's all I have today.
Any questions? We'll move to E, attorney.
Yeah, I just have one thing. I just received this tonight, so it's the first time I'm looking at it, but this is just a claim, it's a class action notice, but it involves the Purdue Pharma lawsuit, that's with the opioids. So it's a huge lawsuit, but it allows municipalities, counties, cities to join in if they feel that they, were damaged as a result of the pharmaceutical companies.
To the opioid crisis.
They're what they've done. I guess their egregious actions if they're as reported. So I'm just looking at this first time. There's a proof of claim deadline of July 30. This is sent to all municipalities. I don't know that we would have any liquidated
Do we have
damages.
we have money that we've spent on Narcan, and our first
Yeah.
responders have Narcan. Is that something that we could possibly get some of it, and it expires? I mean, and so we have to throw it away, and
$50 a pop.
Yep. There's an expense for Narcan, and they've
Yeah.
administered.
To make this claim, it is by July 30. To the extent that we were inclined to do so, you would also want to know some of that information, basically how we were damaged, and, if we could quantify that.
The problem is it gonna cost us a lot of money to enter
No, it's,
into the fray?
no, there's no cost. It's it's a typical situation where if they're successful, the attorneys get paid by the defendants and
Oh,
to their
okay.
fee. So there's no cost to participants.
And you'd have
Right.
record of Narcan used and all that.
What time frame are we looking at?
July 30 by 5 p.m.
No, I mean from what period to what period?
I don't think there is a time period, quite frankly. Let me look here. Just here in their explanation, it says it dates back to the late 1990s.
Oh, wow.
Their wrongful action. Or it could be that long.
Any expenses you've had on calls?
But, I guess we could go in and, why don't you put something together, Chris? If you think it's worth it. I mean, I don't know, get an idea what the cost is, and then we can talk.
You won't have any record as to the number, though.
Not going back, I know you don't have any records, but you can tell us right now what it's costing us, right?
Well, I'd have to go back and look at my worksheet for my budget, but I believe that we were paying like $32 per Narcan. We have one in each squad, plus we have additional ones in the evidence rooms. So do we have to give $1 that we need to, or is it just,
Yeah,
or are we just
Yeah.
going in there?
no, we want to quantify it, that's the problem. We
I
can't
would
just
wonder if
first
we could
responders
add
have
the
a separate-
waste at what you had to dispose of as well.
Is there
Yeah.
separate?
The other problem is we have to provide proof.
Do you not have vouchers?
We should have a-
Well, at this point, we don't have to provide the proof here, but the claim form just says, include the claim amount. I mean, we have to substantiate it, you're right, Peter,
Yeah.
but.
You must
we
know
don't
who
have
you
to have
order it
receipts.
from, just look it up and.
Right.
And the claims can be, once they look at them, they're not all gonna, some are gonna be denied. So, yeah, it may come down to what you have for proof, but with the July 30 deadline here,
That's pretty
the
quick.
point right now is just, you wanna participate and put a claim in. I would feel comfortable doing that even, we don't have receipts or anything, that'd be fine. If you can give me a number maybe annually, what you think it's cost us,
Right.
that would be good.
Bless you.
And of course, all of that isn't necessarily tied into this you know, and to their wrongdoing, you have illegal stuff too, but that's the whole idea behind the lawsuit.
Right.
you know, so.
I'll talk to Tracy too and see if she's,
So
the
then-
first responder, see if she has any other ideas too for stuff.
So with that, that's all I have, and so, with everybody's understanding, I guess if we get something,
Yeah.
we'll see to it that we make a claim, okay?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
F is administrator, is anyone taking anything? Nothing to report there, okay. G, the building permit is in the packet. H, court report, we do not have one. 11, communications and miscellaneous business. Black Otter Lake District news.
We had a meeting last night. It's hard to hear probably if I had that on. Drawing up the budget for the annual meeting, which will be on August 31st at 6. We had approved $1,000 for the shelter improvement project at Alonzo. And I think the bids came in. Jeannie brought those to the meeting last night and gave them to Al.
No, that wasn't what that was for.
What was it? I'm sorry.
They weren't for that?
I thought
Well, I don't think, I thought you said that was still in the mix and you had to talk to Peter and you were gonna talk to Al on that because.
It is, but I don't, I
They
don't
were,
know.
they didn't understand those bids last night, Al didn't, so.
I think it was just, I don't think he was looking for payment, he was just saying
No.
how much it was gonna cost to do what we wanted to
And,
do there.
and what they wanted to donate as far as the Black Otter
Yeah.
Lake District went.
We're gonna do some work this year, and with the 1,000, the Lake District's donating, Public Works had budgeted some money for Alonzo as well. We're gonna do some preliminary work this year and maybe even get some concrete down, we'll see.
so. It would help if somebody could speak to that at the annual meeting.
Yeah.
If
Well,
that's
if
possible.
you did the 1,000, you already put 10,000 in the recreation line item, which is for the fishing docks and boat
Right.
launch.
Right.
So we were hoping to get a $5,000 check before the end of this fiscal year,
We have it,
Yeah.
Jane has it.
and we were going to get another $10,000 check this fall in your next fiscal year.
Right.
But we wouldn't get anything for our capital plan next year, so we show that as being zero. As far as the pavilion goes, we're gonna have to work that out with the Peter's group there. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
But
well,
if we could see the whole picture, I think it would help the district.
yeah,
make
we'll
a
put something
decision
together.
On more money or whatever.
on more money?
Possibly, I mean, if people.
Well, yeah, we had a bid from New London Building Supply on materials needed.
That was the one, yeah.
We had that last year already, didn't we?
No.
It was
Oh,
just
this is
updated,
I
Peter.
thought it was twice this, but no, this is one of
He
them.
just updated it. I called
Yeah.
New London
Who did?
Building Supply today.
Yeah.
Who updated it?
New London Building Supply updated the quote because it was from last year,
Right.
so they
So it's the
updated it.
same material list,
Yes,
but just a different price?
yes,
Okay.
because it expired last year.
Right, so
He
the,
updated it.
so the approach I wanted to take was Carl and I and maybe Chris, or maybe you, would approach New London Building Supply and talk to the owners or the president and see if they could donate part of that. Because of the $5,700, maybe, maybe I could knock off $2,500. That's what I was going to do. That was the approach we talked about. Okay?
Yeah, so
And
it's
David
still in the
wasn't-
works.
What?
You know, that's what Black Otter Lake District wanted to know, if it was still in the works and
Yes.
everything, so.
And what it
Yes.
is, what does it encompass, what's the plan, I guess, would
Is
we
your
have
next meeting there this summer?
Where?
August 31st down at Alonzo,
Well, that'd be a perfect time for
annual
us to
meeting,
come
yeah.
there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if somebody could come and just explain,
Are there food and beverages?
yeah,
Good.
No beer.
And coffee.
that came up
You
last
can
night.
tried for it.
I'll provide the coffee.
We tried for it, but they.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you send me an email
Yep,
and give it, and include Carl,
Yeah.
and give us the dates and the times
sure,
and a
Thank
dish to
you.
pass?
There, no passing dishes.
Okay. And we can come there, we've got the numbers, and we
Okay.
can talk about, and it's good that it's there, because we can explain everything that's going to be done.
Because I think what was presented to us by David at the previous meeting was they want to do some improvements, but it was real nebulous, so I think this would help.
Okay, excellent. So what day of the week is that?
Monday,
Huh?
Monday,
Oh, Monday, that's fine.
Monday, August 31st at 6.
Is this a copy, Carl?
Another
have
concern was
that.
brought up
Do you
about
want-
the needing a garbage can down at the fishing pier. Carl, is that something, you guys can put a garbage can down at the fishing pier?
Oh, the temporary one?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
one or two, I guess it's
Yeah.
really getting bad down there.
yeah.
Thank you. We haven't set a new date for cleanup. We're hoping to do a lake cleanup, but it's hard to organize with the COVID. Possibly looking at August 22nd because they're doing a Fox River watershed cleanup that day. So more to come on that. That's all I have on that one.
We'll move to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District news.
No news, but they are still trying to recruit volunteers. So if anybody knows anybody, Hortonville or Hortonia, might be interested, feel free to pass it on. They got a couple of Facebook posts.
Do you have an age cutoff limit?
I don't think they do.
Okay,
I mean, there's some physical requirements for it.
yeah.
But other than that, I don't.
I'm asking for Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I don't qualify.
I noticed there are a lot of young members.
There is a significant amount of time commitment involved.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, and they get a uniform stipend, once a year. And then the fire department tries to do some stuff for them when they have to do an excessive amount of training, like the training to drive an emergency vehicle. I mean, that's why they have that other fund that they maintained. They do stuff like, a little gift card or something of that nature.
Driving a truck, fire truck requires a CDL?
No,
No?
driving any emergency vehicle that has lights on it, even a pickup truck, requires, how many hours, Chris, do you know? It's
I thought it was,
15, 17 hours
Yeah.
of training plus, so, and they do it in like, no, it's even more than that. It's more like 30 hours of training. They have to give up 2 Saturdays. They have to give up 2 hours a week for 15 weeks or something to be able to qualify, just to drive the pickup truck with the lights on.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a significant, and that's on top
Commitment.
of the training that they go through regularly.
Okay.
So their requirements are, for a volunteer, it's a significant amount. So they could really use some help if anybody knows anyone.
Okay.
How are
Thank
they
you.
advertising?
I see they've been posting up on Facebook. Every time that I see it out there, I share it from my account.
And are they
But
open to women?
yeah, they're open to anybody.
Okay,
Oh,
I just
yes.
wondered how it's advertised,
we have
so,
one woman.
okay.
It's
Firefighter.
advertised
Okay,
that
good.
anybody who's interested,
Because I
please
could-
feel free to,
I'm sure
come down there and
there's some
investigate
other
it, ask questions. I mean, I think they have like a training, a small training facility inside of the firehouse. And you see this if you do the open house stuff that they have, but it's a mock of a 2nd-story window. And you have to be able
Yeah.
to physically pull yourself through it or wade through it or something of that nature. That's where I don't qualify for something like that. So you have to be able to carry a certain weight and be able to lift it, and there's certain physical requirements involved.
Okay, thanks.
Move to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and news, and it is in the packet. D is Hortonville Civic Association.
Nothing, except the fact that I'll work with Carl and attend the Lake Association, give them an update on what we intend to do.
Thank you.
E is Senior Activities Committee.
We met on June 29th, I believe it was, 27th, somewhere in there. Small group due to people being restricted on outside meetings. The grab and go meal is continuing on Wednesdays here. That's gonna continue through at least August, possibly September. There's some discussion about it being more permanent because congregate meals are gonna be difficult to do. The transportation program with the vans started on July 6th. I have some concerns about what it's gonna mean for the administrative office. Right now, the people that are doing the driving are Legion members. I'm also a volunteer driver for it, and there's a man with the Legion that's doing the coordinating of the driving. As it continues to grow, I don't know how that's gonna go, and maybe that's something we can discuss at a different time. I think what happened was it was sold as, let's do this, and I'm just concerned, the coordination. I don't want it to fall apart when we have two brand new vans, and people need drivers, and, we have a volunteer that's setting them up. You know, it's a lot to ask of someone if it increases, and I know when we get county reimbursement for expenses, plus some of Nathan's time, I think David said initially was built into the plan, but Nathan already is doing a lot. So I think we have to think how we want to do this.
Well, let me tell you how DAB does it. They have a transportation operation statewide. You've seen their vans. And they have a transportation office, that a person that sits there and answers a call and does all the scheduling.
Right.
So, but those costs would be reimbursable.
Yes.
And that person might be here, might be someplace else. The vans are here, so it doesn't really matter that person be based out of this facility, but somebody could actually be a part-time employee and schedule this.
Could they do it from home?
Huh? Yeah, they could do it from home.
Yeah.
DAB has volunteers that, of course, are drivers, but I think they compensate, I know they compensate the office staff. And there's one person in there that comes in 8 in the morning, leaves at 5 in the afternoon, but she does all the schedule work. So that's something,
Okay.
you know, we can't saddle him
Well,
or the admin with that.
yeah.
I think he's working 1.5 times now.
And it's, I know the first ride was today, right, Nathan?
I got some notes from Bob
Okay,
about
great. Well,
just things we can do.
Yeah, and it just started, but I wanted to put it out there that it's a concern of mine
Yeah.
that we not, have expectations that were assumed at the time, and then it's not gonna happen, so. And then I know that on the future agenda items is the building, the potential senior buildings. There were questions about that at the meeting. Of course, the word got around that we're probably gonna have one, so people have a lot of questions in the community about what's happening with that. The library is now delivering books again to Pinewood. And then we're having a subcommittee meeting on the 29th to discuss some type of alternative to our Autumn Fest that we've been doing every year. And that's it.
Okay, then we'll move to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present, and there is no one. And then 13, motion to appoint minute taker for closed session, and I will appoint Shauna.
I would agree with that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14, then I would need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a
Julie's
motion.
good at reading these, so.
I was gonna do it.
Well, I'll let Jim take the
Okay.
honors. He's got all that printed paper, so.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll make a motion to go into closed session, in accordance with state statute 19.85(1)(c), considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
Good job.
Second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay, we will now take a 5-minute recess to clear the meeting room. Any action on matters discussed in closed session? There is none. I will now ask for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.
Aye.